So. Okay, it looks like we're on live here. Thanks for those who have showed up to the meeting, monthly bridge update meeting. I'm Jay Owens, city engineer, with Terry Ward, the project manager from MNDOT. We've had a lot happen this last month, and probably see it out there. There's some dirt being moved and pile being driven, and I think we're on schedule. I think Terry's going to go through that a little bit, and sure feels like things are on schedule here, and we'll be getting through this first stage, pretty quick here. So.
Well, thanks, Jay. I'll start again with safety like I did last time. So far, the project safety, we've had one recordable accident, no lost work time. So again, the project from a safety perspective is going really, really well. We had a worker that got some grit in their eye and didn't realize it till a few days later on, and then actually had to go in and have a little bit of medical care. No eye damage or anything, no lost work time, but it was a recordable accident. So and then last time we talked about the public staying out of the work zone, and we appreciate that. On the Red Wing side, we're still coming out of the ground. We're still finding some stuff out there in terms of debris and surprises. And then on the Wisconsin side, there's been some people that are walking from the Harbor Bar Island Campground area through our work area up into the Mud Lake area. So we just asked them not to do that for safety reasons. So kind of a public advisement there, if you will. In terms of the project, Jay mentioned that we are on schedule and we are on budget. So we've had some minor things in terms of finding some surprises, like I talked about, where we have to pay the contractor some extra work or some extra dollars for things that aren't in their bid, but nothing of any significance yet. So again, on schedule and on budget and going real well. In terms of traffic, again, I mentioned last time, the river crossing is basically like it's going to be for the whole 2017. We did do some deck work repair on the Eisenhower Bridge last week. If need be, if there's some more repair work, we'll go out there and take care of it. But barring that, traffic should stay like it is for the rest of 17. We did start our bypass construction on the Wisconsin side. I've had some people ask me, what are you building downstream of Highway 63? What kind of permanent work is that? Well, the answer is it's temporary work, and it's a bypass for the box culvert so that eventually we can come back and actually under Highway 63 replace a box culvert at Mud Lake, do the permanent work. We've got to move traffic over, shift traffic over onto this temporary bypass. So we have 2 lanes, 1 in each direction, while we do the permanent work. That bypass needs to sit there for a year and make sure it settles out before we move highway traffic over onto it and feel comfortable that it's going to handle the highway traffic for the period of time that we need it. On the Minnesota or the Red Wing side, Highway 61 is basically like it's going to be for the bulk of this construction season. We're working on southbound. Hope to wrap that up soon, and then we'll switch over to northbound. And the goal, again, is to get both north and southbound 61 rebuilt with a brand new signal system and a button hook and the temporary bridge, all by April 2nd of next year, so that we can move all of highway traffic inbound and outbound from Red Wing to the temporary bridge and the button hook and Highway 61. So that next year, coming out of the gate, it's actually April 2nd, we'll do the slip ramp construction into town, the 3rd Street and
utilities, a lot of city utilities, and work on Potter and 3rd there. So taking traffic off of that is key, because we need that whole work area going right by Red Wing Shoe Plant 1. So,
So 3rd Street is permanently closed. We've cul-de-sac that off. 4th Street is open. We have a section in there that we have to come in and do some sidewalk and some curb and gutter and some bituminous patchwork there to get that put back together. And we hope to do that by the end of this month to get that taken care of. The road to the back side of Red Wing Shoes is closed off, and that'll stay closed until September of 2018. So we did that a few weeks ago, and that'll stay closed for quite a while, and we've been coordinating with Red Wing Shoes closely on that. Last week we did some night work, and we tried as best we could to get the word out to the public. We put a storm sewer across Highway 61 that we needed to maintain the drainage along the bluff. So as we're doing drainage changes, the existing drainage facility we need to take offline, and we need to push all that water into the new facility. So we had to put a new pipe under Highway 61 to take all that drainage from the bluff to make sure that didn't get caught up without having an out, if you will, and cause some ponding on Highway 61.
It made sense to do that work at night to minimize the traffic delays that are needed to cross those lanes of traffic. When we're down to just one lane in each direction, you got to get a pipe across there. Now you have to flag around that, and contractor thought it'd be good to get that work done overnight, much less traffic, not all the people coming in and leaving town. So.
In terms of construction then on the Wisconsin side, the 825th East excavation and filling is going well. Again, we're doing 2-foot lifts, waiting 2 weeks, another 2-foot lift, waiting 2 weeks. It's just a long process to build that fill on 825th. Once we get that far enough along, we'll start the embankment on Highway 63, and that'll be the same type of process. 2-foot lift, wait for 2 weeks, 2-foot lift, wait for 2 weeks. So that'll continue on until March or April of next year, that whole process over there of building that tall embankment for the highway approach to the bridge. The bridge approach surcharge wick drains, again, once we get that built, it'll take roughly a year to settle that out. So we actually won't be grading, putting rock down and paving the approach on the Wisconsin side until 2019. So that'll sit for a long time over there for foundations purposes. In terms of the bridge, then, it's kind of interesting. If I can start on the north abutment, the footing is done. We got a rebar coming up on the abutment walls.
On the Wisconsin side.
Wisconsin side, yep. Pier 6, we've got the footing poured. We're building the pier stem or columns now, so that we'll put the formwork up, and perhaps by early next week, we'll have our first concrete pour coming out of the footing. So you'll start to see eventually here pretty quick some physical concrete coming up of the piers and coming up out of the footing, or the ground bottom, if you will. Pier 5, today I was just over there. We're pouring the footing on Pier 5, which is good progress, and then we'll start the pier column on Pier 5. We have not started Pier 4 yet. Pier 3, right in the campground area there, we're relatively close to being done pile driving. We got the last sections welded on. We have to drive those down, and then we'll be done pile driving on Pier 3. We hope by the end of the week the contractor will have the permit amendment from the Corps of Engineers to build their trestle into the river, because then we'll get started on Pier 2. And then if I switch gears to the Red Wing side, Pier 1 is on the docket to start real soon. We've got the crane sitting over there. So that's real good progress on the new bridge. In terms of the Minnesota side then, in terms of the grading work, the buildings obviously are gone. The storm sewer work on southbound 61 is close to being completed. We put a 42-inch line run of storm sewer along southbound, if you've been watching. Now we don't have to do that on northbound, so the northbound side should go a lot quicker for us.
You probably noticed some big concrete structures out there. Those storm sewer structures, a couple of them are going to be, they'll have a weir wall in them, and there'll be a treatment structure that will actually, as part of our agreement with MNDOT, the city will maintain those, pump those out. It collects grit and debris from the highway. And keeps it from going to the river. So that with those are instead of ponds, those are another way to do it, where you do it in line, in the storm line itself, and you open it up, and we'll use our Vector truck. We'll probably start on checking it every 6 months, and may go to a yearly basis where we have to get in there and pump those grit chambers out. But
this is something new that wasn't there before?
Correct. The question is, are they something new? And that is, those are new. That's There was no treatment at all in that storm line before. It dumped into our storm tunnel in Bluff Street and ran right to the river. So this is, try to do these, we did that on a levee when we built levee last year. We added these type of sump structures as well. So just a way to try to get the road salts and sands collected and disposed of rather than just letting it all run to the river. So.
In the early layouts, the geometric layouts, there was a pond inside the button hook area, and then we're not building that pond anymore, and this is one of the elements that kind of allows that to not build a pond.
Yep, we took out the pond and actually added an enhanced landscaping, and then it added these instead for our treatment.
So if you go out and look, if you walk out on the bridge over 61 on the sidewalk there, you can get a real good view of the button hook grading that's coming, how that button hook is going to fit into there. Before too much longer here, we'll actually remove part of the existing bridge over Highway 61 to fit the temporary bridge in there. It'll be right next to that bridge, and we actually have to remove part of that structure to get the temporary bridge to fit in between the bridge and Barn Bluff.
But with that removal, the bridge will stay open. We just got to remove part of it to get this temporary one built.
Yep. We'll put in some temporary barrier and keep this, I'll call it the slip ramp bridge or Bridge
Why
9.
does that have to be temporary? Why can't you just go ahead and do it the way it's going to end up?
It doesn't, the question was, why can't we build a new permanent bridge in lieu of building a temporary bridge? And it doesn't fit the geometry of the different movements, the slip ramp and the button hook. There's not room to build a bridge that fits that geometry.
The new bridge, to build the new bridge over 61, the old bridge has to completely come out. So to keep traffic flowing, that was the idea that came as we were designing this, is let's build a temporary bridge and move traffic out of the way so we can pull the old bridge out and build the new one in place. So that was the reason. It's a tight area. You can see you got the bluff and the ADM and everything so tight. Red Wing Shoe right there. And
the temporary bridge does not have the same shoulder widths as the new bridges. It's basically going to have narrow 2-foot shoulders across the temporary bridges to work that in there. So good questions. Sewer and water work on the Red Wing side, we're pretty well along with the sewer and water work. We have some final testing to do, but we're coming out of the ground, I think, pretty well. So Jay and his team have been great to work with, and we're not quite there yet. I mentioned some testing that we have to do.
We have some testing, health department testing to get through, and making sure that the lines that the contractor put in are holding pressure and everything is for sanitary and water main meet standards. So we're working with the contractor on that right now.
And then one of the last things, if you walk out to the bridge over 61 and you look, there's a big excavation there. One of the first things you'll see, and we're actually digging down to put in a retaining wall footing. So that retaining wall is part of the button hook that comes around. So you'll see eventually pretty soon here we'll start to form up a footing, we'll pour a footing, and then we'll cast a retaining wall which will hold up that button hook coming around. So it's kind of fun. You can start to see the pieces of the puzzle coming together.
Yep. And those retaining walls are all on spread footings. There's no pile driving on the Minnesota side for that type of vibration. The pile driving is going to be basically the Wisconsin side, and then we're spread footings and drilled shafts on the Minnesota side for footings. So for both Barn Bluff vibration and the historic businesses were thought of when those designs put together.
Is that dictated by the concerns about the bluff?
Yes, the question was, is that dictated by the concerns of the bluff? And that's definitely, we're looking at that, thinking we got to do different type of foundations that aren't going to create those vibrations for the bluff and the buildings that are in downtown Red Wing here. So okay, Terry's got some things here to show you.
So like last time, I got some videos to show you of the project, just kind of random stuff. So this is 825th. I mentioned we're putting a 2-foot lift on, and just to give you an idea, we put a 2-foot lift on and then come back after 2 weeks and put the next one on. So the grading contractor, subcontractor, if you will, their equipment, they're just over there bringing in sand and placing the next 2-foot lift of sand on 825th East, I'll call it. So this is part of the permanent roadway over there. And if I go back then, a few videos then in Red Wing. So just to scan, it looks a lot different today if you go out there and take a peek. So this is, from not that long ago, a little over maybe 2 weeks ago, a video of the site. And someone asked what those big piles are. That one's topsoil in the back behind that, I'll call it that mine truck or rock truck. And that's where you can start to see the button hook coming in. I thought that would be kind of good to show from, not all that long ago how much different the site looks compared to...
Looking over Bluff Street right there.
Yep. Bluff is where you'll go out and see that big excavation for the retaining wall if you go out there today on that bridge and take a peek.
If you can get across that bridge, the weeds look pretty bad there on the edges. We might be lacking a little maintenance there, huh, Terry?
We'll get on that. So here's another view of the work in terms of the button hook, where it'll match up with Highway 61, and where we put the sewer and water line to the right of the screen. There's a view of that storm sewer running on the southbound 61, that 42-inch line that we talked about, all that water coming down. It goes into the city storm tunnel. So the contractor is just installing that long run, which they're getting pretty close to being completed with that. That's the biggest piece of storm sewer that we need to put in on the project. And another picture of that same storm sewer installation, and this one, I just tried to pan around the project a little bit to give you a view of what's going on.
That storm sewer drops into a old mainline tunnel that is on Bluff Street that is about 30 feet deep, and that's carved in rock. That was put in a long time ago in the 1800s, late 1800s.
Okay. And this one, I call it the bubbling crude from the Beverly Hillbillies. This is what I believe to be the worst area of contamination. This is that retaining wall, along Bluff. And you can kind of see the bottom there. So the contractor is excavating, putting it into a truck that's going to direct haul it to a landfill in Rosemont.
And Terry, this was known about. That was in the contract that they were going to have some contaminated materials to deal with at this old NSP gasification plant site.
We actually have found less than what the site reviews kind of told us going in that we could run into. But it's definitely there, and we're set up to appropriately deal with it. We have contractors team and consultants that deal with contamination on that's their job, and they're trained and they're experts in that. So nothing of concern, but it's there, and our team has to deal with it, like I say. And again, another pan, if you will. That's the patch that we put in across 61, the storm sewer that we put across as we pave that back in to get traffic.
That was the nighttime construction
work,
right
yep.
there, to get across and pick up the ditch flow from the Barn Bluff side.
Somebody asked me, what did you spray on those topsoil piles? And that's just a mulch to try and keep from eroding those topsoil piles. Okay, and then just a few on the bridge side. So let's start with some sheeting. It was over on Pier 3, in between the sides of the Island Campground, and was driving the sheeting in for that coffer dam. This one's a couple of weeks old as well. But just using I call it a vibratory hammer to move that sheeting down in for that coffer dam. And just another piece of that same installation, a little bit further along. But again, this is a couple of weeks old.
More vibrated in than than like pile driving, where it's a hammer dropping on it.
How did the Eagles tolerate all the driving? Any problem?
No, the question was, how did the eagle nest that's out there tolerate the driving? The eagle nest is closer to the north abutment, so it's actually quite a ways away from this Pier 3. In terms of the closer piers, Pier 6 and the north abutment, we monitored the eagles, and they handled it extremely well. The other thing is the eagles fledge the nest or leave the nest around mid-July in terms of the young ones and such, so they're not there sitting on the eggs or the young ones, so that we don't have to monitor the nest after the middle of July from a fish and wildlife perspective. I got a picture or a video, if you will, of a rebar cage. So this is Pier 6 and the pier stem or pier column. They pre-tied as much as they could. So now they're lifting that over to place it on Pier 6, and then they'll finish the rebar installation, which they're pretty close to being done with today. And that'll be the pier that we pour here. By early next week, we might pour that pier column on Pier 6. But just a picture of them. They've tied as much as they could down on the ground. It's much more productive and efficient that way before they get that set. And then they'll tie the rest of it after they get it set. Some people asked for some pile driving videos, so sorry about the geometry on this one. Let's get a better one. No, they're all on the side. Let me rotate. Sorry about that. It's a little hard to see.
Those piles go through the muck pretty easily. It looks like that hammer's dropping them down pretty fast there.
And this one's, again, sorry about it, but we're down to bearing, so there's not moving very much at all. And our inspector's out there counting the blows and the timing on that. So it stiffens up really, really quickly once we get down to bearing.
How many feet again, roughly?
That one on Pier 6 went down around 135 feet. The north abutment went down about 167. So here's probably the best view I got of that one. That one's moving pretty good. So we're quite a ways away from bearing. So what they've been doing is vibrating them down the first section and then welding on another one and start to hit it. And then again, by the time they get the third section on, that's the one that they drive down to bearing. So you can see that one's going down pretty fast. Yeah, it does. Yep, and if they hit it enough, they'll start to mushroom the pile. So we actually analyze the pile and make sure they don't damage it. And, we know the pile hammer and the energy that it has and what it can do to the pile and the type of pile, and those are all factored into the pile driving formulas or sequencing, if you will, by our bridge experts. So that's pile driving. This was an overall view from the north abutment looking towards ADM, just to see the operations going on, multiple cranes, multiple crews, people walking out. Chad Hansen is helping us with construction now, so he's there in the wheelchair getting out and getting into construction, getting some good construction experience, so it's good for him.
Hey, Terry, go back to that again there.
Sure.
This is a good view of, you can see how tight, Terry's mentioned that, you can look there and see how tight that bridge window is that you've got to get between the bridge and the ADM tanks right there with the new bridge, so.
Enjoy your room on this side.
Yeah, it's not there on the other side, correct.
Yeah, to me, Jay mentions the room, the bridge will fit, but if you play this again, contractor needs space for their cranes and equipment and materials and everything, and it's going to be interesting to see how they not only get the bridge to fit, but where they put their cranes, because they can't be swinging over the tanks without ADM's approval. So that's going to be a challenge that we haven't talked through all the details yet, but we will soon. This was our first concrete pour. So this was the north abutment footing, about a 50-yard pour, our first pour. It's a little, it flows pretty well. But that was part of several hours. It took quite a while for that pour. This was the patching we did on the bridge deck last week. The crew was out there. They did their prep work and they mixed up the hand bag mix for that, and that stuff set up really fast. They could drive on that really quick.
And Terry, we mentioned we might have to do that again to the Eisenhower Bridge a few times during this construction while we're keeping it open.
Yep, we may. We had a number of people that were concerned about the potholes and the potential of the bridge having to be closed. There may be potholes again. It doesn't mean that the bridge has to be closed, but if it happens, we'll get the repair work scheduled and we'll do the patching and go through that cycle again, if you will. But potholes don't necessarily mean that the bridge is going to be closed. They're an evolution of the age of the structure. And lastly, so we've got a 12-foot wide permit with restriction on Highway 61, and I was out there and I saw a truck come through with a big sign, over-dimensional permit load coming through, and I panicked. I thought it was a wide load. Well, it's actually a beam destined for Winona, and it's not over 12 feet wide, so it was fine. But this truck with overhead loads comes through, and I go, oh, what's going to happen? Because we only got 12 feet wide, and it was a beam going down to Winona for the bridge down there. So I thought I'd take a video of that. So that's our videos, and I guess if there's any questions or comments or feedback, Jay, anything to add?
Take any questions from the audience? Nancy? Yeah.
One of the problems we've had in our campground is on the Wisconsin side on Trenton Island. Through the 28 years that we've rented, is to keep people out of the campground that don't belong in the campground. We've got signs up all over the place that say, get a permit at the office, don't come in here. if you're not a client and all of that sort of stuff. And we stop cars all the time and send them out of the campground. Well, now that we've got bridge gawkers, people that come to watch the construction, that has exacerbated this problem. And we're stopping 15, 20 cars a day. And you have to be able to keep these people happy and still kick them out. And, you know, it takes a lot of talking, a lot of stuff. If you've got any ideas, that'd be neat. For instance, if you wanted to put up a sign, even though it might be on our property, and that would say, for safety reasons, this is not a viewing portal, fine. Anything that might keep people away would help us.
Yeah,
Terry, you want to take it?
Sure, the comment, I think it was more of a comment than a question, but the comment was about people accessing Island Campground, that they're bridge gawkers, I'll call them. And first of all, if I could ask you a question, are any construction workers do you find them driving or going into your site? Okay, so I don't need to remind the contractor of that. Okay.
Most construction workers are great.
And then secondly, I'll kind of, now if I could, I'll do a little public service announcement to remind the community and anybody, if you want to view the Red Wing Bridge project, Island Campground is not a viewing site for the project. It's private property, so please respect that. We will, if people call our project and want to come look at the job, my team and I will take them out and look at the job. We'll do it safely though, and we'll do it appropriately. So that's my public service announcement. We can put out a news release formally if you'd like, or perhaps put up a sign at the entrance to the campground saying private property, stay out, not a construction zone. Just let us know your wishes in terms of those ideas, either some type of formal news release or some type of signing that says, not a construction zone, private property, please stay out.
We found in the past, if we relax our efforts, that a lot of people come in the campground that don't belong there. Eventually, there are people coming in to take showers. Eventually, there are people coming in to have a look around, see what they can steal. And so it's better to just bite the bullet and say, I know you're not in here looking to steal something, but we're just not letting anybody in here that shouldn't be in here. And I don't have any specific ideas, but you mentioned at the very start that you're having problems with people walking in the harbor bar, walking straight up the chute. And that's crazy. There's things hanging all over in there. And so if there's something you want to do, you'll find us cooperative.
Okay, so what I'll draft a news release and run it by you first for review to see if it meets your needs, and then if you want, well, then we'll issue a news release. We can talk to the contractor about some signing, and you can look at that to make sure it's appropriate for what you'd like to put there, and then we can talk some more if that works for you.
Yeah, just do it by email. You don't have to make
Yes.
it down
Yep. Okay. Good. Anything else?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just have a question on I know you had sent me, and I appreciate your quick responses to the work that they did on 4th Street and where it's going to be eventually patched. Are they going to keep monitoring that and keep putting gravel in as it sinks?
Yeah, and we had an incident last week where we had some rain, and but before we could get there, we got some calls or notification. Hey, it's in tough condition. We appreciate that because we get the contractor right out there to take care of it.
Right.
So we'll definitely monitor that. If it's not quite up to satisfactory before we get that paved, just give me a call or an email and we'll get right on it.
It's okay right now.
Yeah.
It did get bad there, which is why I did email you about it.
Absolutely.
I was curious.
Yeah, don't hesitate to get a hold of us if it's starting to sink. That happens with those gravel patches, and we're right there. We'll get the contractor there to smooth it out until we get that permanent.
I just want to, if somebody else is keeping an eye on it, I'm not going to worry about it. But if you would want us to let you know, then I will.
Let's do both.
Let's do.
I'll email you if I see that it's getting bad.
Absolutely, appreciate that.
So.
Yep, for sure.
Anything else?
Patty, have any questions from the chamber?
We really haven't gotten many questions about it. We had a lot at the start, and now that it's in progress, people are more curious that, actually.
Sure. Good. Well, and we, as working with Terry and the public relations team, we've got different, there's a lot of things going out with the social media. People are, questions are getting answered. I get calls quite a bit, and emails directly, so we're answering them. If I can't answer them, I'm forwarding them on to Terry. We're gonna do some things. We're getting a time-lapse camera placed to kind of watch the bridge as it's getting built across the river here, so we're getting that put in place. We're looking at putting some kiosks in that kind of explain the project funding, and kind of some neat facts. We'll probably do one in Levy Park and one up on 3rd Street at our parking lot there. So people just walking around can stop and say, oh, okay, this is the bridge project for the next 4 years. And so we've just got that kiosk done, and we're getting that printed and put in place. So I think PR-wise, it's hopefully why you're not getting a lot of questions, Patty, is because I think we're trying to do a good job of getting information out. So, yeah. Good. That's all I had. I thank you again, and we're gonna, Terry, let's continue these first Wednesday of the month, and we'll see how it goes and how long we go over the winter here. So, thanks for coming.
Thank you.